I'm Janine.
And I'm Peter, and we're Mitch's parents. We prefer to call him Mitch rather than Mitchell. Most of his friends refer to him as Mitch.
He was born 35 years ago, just in the local hospital, and suffered a traumatic delivery. He strangled on the cord, it was around his neck 3 times.
I was told not to expect him to live, but he did. And I guess there's a couple of things to mention about that. One is the enormous work that Janine... Sorry, I get a bit emotional when I talk about this. The enormous work that Janine put into Mitch in those early formative years. And the fact that it happened when he was a baby, it meant other areas of the brain took over, and his speech moved from one section of the brain to another as his vision moved a little bit forward. Now, had he had that sort of trauma at even 18 months of age, the brain wouldn't have reacted in the same way. So if something had happened later, where the outcomes would have been a lot worse. And I just say to anyone with children that there but for the grace of God could be your child. We also made I think it was an important decision very early in his life, that we weren't going to treat him differently to the other two children. He was going to have to be part of the family, and that we would just simply, whatever the disability turned out to be, we would work around it. So we've never allowed him to use it as an excuse. Now, it might sound a bit hard, but it's just the attitude that we took, because we felt that Mitch shouldn't be dragging everybody else down, the others should be dragging him up. Around about the age of 22, Janine and I had a discussion one day, and I said to Janine, what happens to Mitch if you and I get knocked over by a bus? Because we'd never considered what would happen. And we did a bit of homework, and the scary thing is that he probably would have gone into a nursing home had none of our family members wanted to take him. And the thought of that really scares you. So we thought we'd better get him in the system. Around about August later that year, I had a random phone call from Human Services to say that Mitch was being offered a place at Hastings. Did we want it? He just turned 25. I've got to tell you, I immediately burst into tears. But we thought if we don't get him in the system, we may never get this other opportunity. It
was a really lovely place for him to stay in. This was a tipping house, and being in Hastings, he just walked down. He was a couple of blocks back from the main street.
In fact, because he was now living more independently, you could see his progression was starting to improve. There's no question in my mind about that. And we're just extraordinarily grateful to Tipping and everyone who's spent so much time looking after. It's given us, frankly, a life.
I'd like to get a real job, paid job.
We've been going to drug training.
Drug training? Yeah.
We just see ourselves as extraordinarily grateful that we can now do things that we wouldn't have otherwise done as a couple. We can go away. We're about to go away on another trip. But I guess more importantly is that we now know that Mitch will be looked after. If something does happen to us, then Mitch is in the same place. And that's all we want.